Right. Okay. Thank you. We are back, and I'm happy to say why we are where we are at the moment. I have no idea, but. We're live. You can see me. I'm very tiny, and let's see. Here we go. There we go. I'm sorry if you were viewing us on our other on our first broadcast of the day. Actually, perhaps it was telling us that normally we do take a break at 9:30, and it is now 9:31, and the thing went duff. It went AWOL. So here we are back again, and the old man just wandered in, as he has a want to do.
Not so much of the old.
Oh, he's
old can be ridiculous.
He's got his 35th birthday coming up soon. That's ancient. How are you, my boy?
I'm very well in my young youth.
That's very good. I'm delighted to see you as always. And are you going to come and say a few words?
Yeah,
I think actually
the news this morning. It was all about the energy crisis, and they had Jonathan Brearley on, who's the regulator, who, in my think, is about as useful as a dripping tap.
Well,
and hang on a sec. You right?
Yeah. No. Come on, sit down, because what you're saying is very pertinent to what's in the news today, the energy crisis, and in fact, one newspaper headline is that the energy bills are going to push inflation up to 15%.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Okay. Well, give us your expert view.
Well, what's happened is the energy cap, right, was set twice a year. Okay. Right.
Yep.
And the reason that it's going up so much is because Putin is restricting the amount of gas, and there is a shortage of supply in Asia. Therefore, the wholesale price of gas keeps going up. All right. So that means our bills keep going up.
Right.
Now, we here have an energy cap where it's a level where all these suppliers can't go above. Okay. Now, that was set twice a year, October 1 and April 1. Now, clearly, the energy regulator said that it's going to be every 3 months. So you see what that means? Right. So let's say it goes up in October, okay?
Right.
By 800 quid.
Yeah.
That means the consumer has got 6 months to actually come to terms with it, and so forth and so on. Right?
Yes.
And it goes until it goes up again in April. Now, if it goes up every 3 bloody months, then every 3 months their bills are going to go up. Right? And we're now talking about poor people having a £500 a month bill, which is absolute fuel poverty. No wonder now there's this whole movement is don't pay fuel bills.
Yes.
It's one of these great things, and it's quite right. And he says, well, it's okay because the companies are not coining it or making huge profits the way they used to, and they're not paying themselves huge bonuses. It's a bloody rich when this man who's a government employee gets £310,000 salary a year. It's also hypocritical and and annoying apart from anything else. The thing is that what goes up comes down, and eventually the gas price will come down. Do you think we get recompense for that? Oh no. And as I said to you so many times here and elsewhere in other platforms, the whole thing really started when they privatised the energy company.
Right.
And these companies will kind of turn to being cartels, oligopolistic cartels. There was the big six, and now it's the big five, because loads of them went bust. And they just say they pay themselves huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
So when they put the bills up, it's not because they
not to satisfy paying off charges, but paying themselves. Yeah. Well, I mean, Stuart, as an ex-FT journalist, and I mean, I'm an ex-Reuters journalist, and I have to say that a lot of the way that the city works and so on and so forth now escapes me. But could you explain to people, because a lot of people remember we've had 20 years with virtually no inflation. Now suddenly it's galloping inflation. Is what the inflation rate rising to 15% will mean to the average man? What is it all about, all this inflation stuff?
Well, inflation is what happens when people are spending too much money, and because they haven't had much money to spend during the epidemic, and really the inflation has not really been rife for 25 years, because it's been controlled really by interest rates. Every time people were spending lots of money, the interest rates, the only way you can control inflation is interest rates. And at the moment, and recently, although they seem to be getting better today, they've been ignoring the interest rates. They've been putting it up slowly, 0.25%, but this morning they said they're going to put it up by 0.5%.
Yeah,
it's the only way you can control it. But the inflation happens when people are spending huge amounts of money, on mortgages, on this, that, on everything really.
Right.
But people haven't been spending. Once they got, when the inflation under control, like mortgages went down, people were getting very, very low deposits and so on. And then you've now got inflation in petrol prices because there was a glut of supply, basically.
And when it comes to embargoes on Russia, is it a case of the biter being bit?
How do you mean?
Well, we put embargoes on gas from Russia, which undoubtedly is...
No, we haven't put an embargo on gas. The fact of the matter, we only get 6% of our gas from Russia, because we get our gas from Norway in the North Sea, whereas and from Qatar in LNG, liquid national gas. That actually is expensive,
right?
Because you've got to get it here.
Yeah. That
is expensive. So that's another expense. But the fact is, although we only get 6% from Russia, it's not about that. It's not about the supply. It's about the price that goes up. So although it goes up because of the shortage of gas,
right?
That is the real problem. I mean, but this is what Russia is actually doing, is stopping the price so that the price goes up.
Now, Stuart, I also said this morning that there are lots of things which in some ways are navel gazing. In other words, they affect us because they are our issues, as it were. But I keep on hearing less and less and less about the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Now, would you agree with that? And is there any reason for it?
Well, I think it's what happens because people just get tired of it. Every day it's just the same sort of stuff, isn't it? Really, yeah. And occasionally you get some big breakthrough. I mean, when I've been in wars years, and some days you just went to listen to the briefings from the government, and it didn't make a story. It's because people, after the initial shocks, it then becomes, you've got to have some important event. Now, it suddenly came back into action when they talked about getting wheat out, because Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world in many ways.
Yeah.
And suddenly that's been back in the news again. But you can probably face that once that's all done and bothered, when people say, "Oh, bloody hell, it's going on and on and on," don't want to listen to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's once you hear all these sob stories, when you've got people on the saying how terrible it's all been and how they want to go to Poland and how they want to get together, you get the sympathy, but people's sort of patience runs out. It's like one sob story is almost the same as everyone else, others.
Indeed.
And then, of course, they got other things to watch, like the women's football. Rather watch that than some poor lady from Ukraine. Actually,
yeah. Well, it is a bit like the Roman emperors giving, games to the crowd, so they didn't notice the shortage of wheat. Yes. What else is happening to you that is of interest?
Not a lot. I mean, I just got quite a lot of things today. My green energy website.
Oh, right. Now, it is. I mean, it's only fair, I think, and right when we have people on this program that we allow them to promote the other things that they're doing, other than being a member of the Mirador team. So perhaps tell people a little bit about Green Barrel and what you do outside broadcasting.
Well, Green Barrel is a successor to Oil Barrel, which it was investment in small oil companies, and I made a great deal of money out of that from this. Now I've got Green Barrel, which is a website about investment in renewable energy companies. And it's very, very interesting thing to do, because we've discovered what we did is investment in listed companies, about renewable energy companies which are listed, and investment in those companies. Now, what happened basically was, after the Copenhagen summit that was abortive, polls show that people weren't that worried about climate change. Only 25% of the people polled says, oh, they're worried about climate change. And secondly, at that stage, this was like 2009, 2010, something like that. So that fuel, fossil fuels didn't seem that urgent and much of a threat. So a company came along with a very good renewable idea, like saying we're going to specialize in marine current turbines or something like that. And they went to the stock exchange to actually raise some money to launch the company. So the company would get listed on the stock exchange, but they would spend all the money in trying to prove up their marine current options, their project, and they have to overcome regulatory hurdles by governments, UAE and Britain, and so on and so forth. And of the 50 we had listed, 16 went bust. Right?
Yeah.
So there were shortages.
Yeah.
So but there's not been much investment. There's not been enough investment in renewable energy companies and renewable things. All right, now people are going mad about investment in offshore wind. Well, it wasn't there. It's only just started. And I convinced, like Dieter Helm, the energy professor at Oxford and advisor to the government, that the renewable energies cannot meet the energy mix. That means to mean our energy needs, right? Can't mean it. And he says there has to be a gas bridge, gas being the least carbon emitting. He says that it's going to be 15 years where we're using gas to actually, to meet the energy bridge, because of the lack of investment over the years.
Right.
And I know I'm counterintuitive when I say that, but that's not helping climate change, is it? Conquering climate change.
Good morning.
Hey?
No, it's not. Yeah. Indeed. I mean, aren't we all everything seems to be working in reverse to the things that we've held sacred over the last little while.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you up to the rest of the day?
Well, I'm writing my book. I'm writing my memoirs at stage,
And why would you write your memoirs? Tell them who you are again.
Well, I've had a very interesting life.
Yeah, go on. Well, tell us a little bit about it. Don't be shy.
Well, I was brought up poor in Paddington and so forth and so on, and it was really interesting childhood in the sense that we heard of the Windrush boats coming across, and in the Windrush was where all the Trinidadians were brought over here, because it was after the war and they needed these Trinidadians to actually drive the buses. And so they came over here, and our school in North Paddington is where all the Windrush people came to Paddington, were out there in that area.
Right.
And I was in this North Paddington school, and when I went there when I was 11, there were 3 black kids, and when I left, when was it? I can't think, 1960 something. It was 85% black, because the children of the Windrush kids were all going to this school.
Right.
And of course, it was, and then these families were. There was a slum landlord called Peter. What was he called now? I can't remember what he's called. Peter Rushford, something like that.
Yeah.
And he housed all these people, and I went to one of the houses. It was awful. It was terrible. They're all sitting around this thing. And then in 1958, of course, there was these riots in Notting Hill. So I was brought up in that kind of environment, and then made my way and got to Sussex University for some reason. I don't know why.
So you've had a very, very colourful life.
Well, really, and then I got when I left the financial science. See, what I didn't know at the time is I've got ADHD. So when I got a poor degree at Sussex University, I was working in London on the Labour site, and I actually opened a copy of the Daily Telegraph, which I'd never done at that stage. And there was an ad which says, researcher wanted for Financial Times Library, must be a graduate, editorial prospects. And I applied, and I went and saw them, and I kept talking, and I got the job. And everybody else that I knew at Sussex University were absolutely dying of envy. Why has he got a bloody job like that when he only got a 2-2? The degrees, you got degrees like under. There's a first, and there's a 2-1, and there's a 2-2, which is commonly known as a Desmond, after the South African cleric, Desmond Tutu.
Oh,
What
right.
did you go?
Is that?
Tutu.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There we go.
And anyway, things went on. I made my way in the Financial Times, first as a financial journalist, and then I got to be quite good at it. I got out of the library and became a financial journalist, and I got quite good at financial journalism. And I was sent out to Hong Kong by the editor, who was at that stage was a German guy called Freddie Fisher, who was a very nice guy. I can talk about him now because he died, but and he sent me out to Hong Kong. And see, my Bible is called A Life of Flukes, because it was a fluke that I got the job. It was a fluke that I got into university. And when I went to Hong Kong, it was just when the Hang Seng Index was going through the roof. Another fluke. I didn't know that. And then, so...
You ran all your assets on that.
I was sending back all these articles about Hang Seng making a fortune and so on. And Freddie phoned me up one day and he said, Stuart, you're doing very well. I want you to come back to London and write about the London Stock Exchange, and where you write about Hong Kong. And I said, well, actually, Freddie, I'm going off to be a war correspondent in Vietnam. They said, no, we do not want a war correspondent in Vietnam. We are not interested in small wars. Anyway, at that point, my Mark Franklin, he was writing for The Observer. He got fed up being there, so he said, why don't you take my job on? And he was running for the Observer, an economist, and I started writing for them. And also, I started writing for the FT as well. And when the FT saw it going on, they said, could you write for us? And I said, oh, well, I'll have a think about it.
And that, of course, it would be about the time of the so-called financial explosion, where everything was expanding, and one-stop shops. What's happened to the one-stop shops? Do they still exist?
I don't know. I'm talking about going to Vietnam.
But I mean, I'm talking about the general environment in which you found yourself financially.
Oh, well, back when I was a kid.
In the economy, yeah.
No, my dad was sort of a girl boy, he was a bit of a fiddler, he was up to all kinds of little characters. And one of them was that he used to go off to Spain. He was only a milkman, but he was on the fiddle all the time. And he'd come back from the war in Germany with loads of silver and chess sets and the rest of it. And then he had this plan to go to China, to Spain, and buy this cheap and Toledo jewelry, which was cheap and cheerful. And he didn't have a shop at that stage, but he'd come back and he'd take a suitcase up to Oxford Street, which happened in those days, you remember?
Yes.
People with great big ties used to sit there. And he says, Sturt, because my family always called me Sturt, because we were very working class, not Stuart. Stuart was too posh, you know. But we don't have names like that. Anyway, and he said, look, keep your eye out for the police. And anyway, I saw them coming and I said, old Bill. So we quickly asked, well, they got the name for the police, the old Bill. They shut down the case, picked him up, and we ran to Marlborough Station. So I was like the Artful Dodger. You know? It was a very, very lively childhood.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, that's our man, is very much a part of Mirador, and but particularly keeps us right up to date with energy matters. But not only that, I have to say, my boy, that you are often well ahead of the pack when you report. Energy Matters on a Wednesday is worth watching because you quite often find out things that later on, a week or 10 days, or even occasionally a month later, is that people are coming to grips with and deciding our headlines. And you had it a month before.
Well, yeah, but I've been writing about it for 6 years, and I just knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen now. I've just told you, haven't I? What's going to happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, just to finish off the biography. So when I was at Vietnam, what happened was I was there for 5 years actually, and the last time was the last advance by the North Vietnamese on the south was in 1975, and they came down. They're trying to take over the south. Remember that Vietnam was in two parts.
Right.
And there was a bloodbath in Da Nang, which is the northernmost city. But it was like Scotland trying to invade in England. When they got down to Saigon, the main city in Saigon, capital in the south, there wasn't going to be a bloodbath because spies had told the North Vietnamese there won't be a bloodbath. You've won. You don't need to do anything else. Right?
Yeah.
So there wasn't a bloodbath. So the American journalists were told by the newspapers they had to leave, but the British ones were told they could stay on. And there were 9 of us actually. And one of them was Sandy Gould, the newscaster, right? And he was given the keys of the British embassy who had left, and their club, their social club. So for 3 weeks, we were at the social club playing badminton, and swimming in the pool. And after 3 weeks, we got a bit bored with all this. So I said to Stanley, look, I'm going to appoint you as chairman of the escape committee to get us out of here. And he said, good idea, old boy. Good old idea. So I said, well, he went over and saw Colonel Van Trang, or whatever his name was. And he said, look, Colonel Trang, it's all getting beyond the joke. How long do you expect to keep us there? So a week later, they shipped us up to Laos. And we went up to Laos, which is there, you know what Laos is.
Yes.
And there was a telegram waiting for me up there. Everything was done by telegrams. There was no internet, no. And it was a friend I had from way back, and he was at Sussex University with me, and he went to America to make his fortune, and he saw an article about me in Time magazine, which said that I am one of the British people who stayed on behind. And he said to me in the telegram, which was read out loud, is it true? Or something read out by somebody who was true. He said, is it true that you got pissed and fell asleep? I said, that's true. And then the North Vietnamese were knocking on your bedroom door the next morning. I said, that's not true, but what a wonderful story. I think I'll go with that. Anyway, I think I will stop at that point.
Okay, well, I mean, I know that you're writing this in a book.
Yeah.
The book will be a few months away before being published. So each time you appear on Mirador, you can give us a little vignette about your history.
But also, don't forget, I am a novelist as well.
Indeed, a published author.
Yeah.
The Friends of Rathlin Island, by the way, if you want, you can find it on the internet and purchase a copy. I read it long before I even met Stuart, and it's a cracking good read. Believe me, it's a good read. So there you are. All right, shall we?
A little break now, shall we?
Yes, we'll see what we've got here. We were playing this when we actually were so rudely interrupted. Let's.
You're muted, aren't you?
Cash point fraud. It's moving south. Watch your cash carefully. It's a dog's life. If you own one, microchip it. It's now the law. And Lewis Prison, often home to the rich and famous. A newspaper, please, Dawn.
Certainly, Keith. There we go.
Thank you very much. There you go. Hi, Seb.
Hello.
Fine, please.
Right. Thank you.
Coffee, please, Kath.
Good morning. There you go, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm very sorry we don't take cards.
It's hard to think now what you can't buy with a credit or debit card. But there are still nice little cafes, like this one, where cash is still king. Or Believe it or not, money is still needed to buy a bus ticket. And then, of course, they're still repaying the tenner you borrowed off a pal and forgot to give back.
Hi, David.
Thanks, David.
How are you? Yeah. Here's that tenner I owe you.
That's very
Oh,
good.
sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Keith Hayes with the latest edition of Catch 'em, the crime show that deals with the bad people in Lewis. It's possible to buy almost anything with a card nowadays, but we do need cash from time to time. And anyway, it's a comfortable feeling to have a fiver or two in your pocket. How do we get it? From cash machines, of course. And the villains know it. There has been a spate of tampering with cash machines in the north of England, and Sussex police are warning the public down here that it's spreading south. Police forces across the country have reported that a number of cash machines have been tampered with or modified so that criminals can get customers' bank details. Thieves tampered with ATMs in the north of England this week, and local police said it is advising the public to be vigilant and report anything suspicious. If it looks as if the machine has been tampered with, call the bank immediately and then call police on 101. Better safe than sorry. We're a nation of pet lovers. One man and his dog has been the mantra of the English for an age and a half. But as of this April, dog owners have a new legal responsibility other than walkies, dinner time, and cuddles. All dogs throughout the UK must be microchipped. Owners who fail to comply face a fine of £500. Authorities estimate that there are still more than 1 million animals that haven't had a chip inserted, but the law applies to every dog and every owner. It's now the law. The chip is about the size of a grain of rice. It's inserted in the loose skin on the back of the neck. The chip contains a code which tells vets or dog catchers who the owners are and where they can be contacted. The scheme is designed to help reunite stray dogs with their families, identify reckless owners, and save local councils thousands of pounds looking after strays. So keep the lead, but get the microchip. It's now the law. Hello, darling. I'll be late home for dinner. How very thoughtful of me to let the good lady know. But if you do it while driving your car on your handheld mobile, it will be an expensive meal. If the police catch you, you'll get 3 penalty points on your licence, £100 fine. And if you have been particularly dangerous while driving, the fine could rise to £1,000 and being disqualified from driving. It's dangerous and has cost lives. Burglars continued their love affair with Haywards Heath this last week. A break-in took place in Chapman's Way. The thieves broke in through a rear door and stole some jewellery. The modus operandi was similar to burglaries which took place in Haywards Heath in mid-March. Intruders were disturbed in Sycamore Drive, Burgess Hill. 3 men in dark clothing were seen fleeing the scene before stealing anything valuable. Also in Burgess Hill, a man was assaulted in the early hours of the morning last week by a stranger. The victim's jaw was broken. Police are appealing for witnesses. Police are searching for a bold robber who threatened a Poundland store owner in Crowborough with a knife. The robber staged the hold-up in broad daylight, just before noon on Good Friday. There is also an appeal for witnesses to a 3-car crash on the A267 at Cross in Hand. 1 woman was seriously injured in the collision, while others sustained minor injuries. The cars involved were a blue Volkswagen Polo, a grey Seat XAO, and a red BMW 320. If you witness the accident, call police on 101. Witnesses are also sought after a bus crashed with 2 cars on South Coast Road, Peacehaven, while a coach carrying 45 elderly passengers tipped into a ditch near Firle last Wednesday. No one was hurt. Standing on the outskirts of Lewes, the town's jail looks formidable. It was built in 1853, and over the years has played host to a number of famous names from the world of crime. The Russian prisoners from the Crimea War, who were held in the old naval prison, have become famous over time. There's a monument in St. John sub Castro churchyard to those inmates who died while in captivity. It's paid for by Russia. A play has been written about, and only recently the Russian ambassador paid a visit to the site. Less well known is that 300 Finnish grenadiers, fighting for the Russians, were incarcerated in Lewes jail, not the naval prison. They were the new prison's first inmates. Several leaders of the Irish Easter Uprising in Dublin of 1916 were held there. They included Eamon de Valera, later the Republic's first president and prime minister. Probably the most famous murderer in the prison was John George Haig. He was known as the acid bath murderer. That's the way he tried to dispose of his victims. He appeared at Lewes Assize Court in July 1949 and was found guilty in just 17 minutes. He was hanged by the then famous Albert Pierrepoint in August 1949. A notorious local murder in 1912 saw John Williams hanged in Lewes prison. Williams shot a police inspector in Eastbourne, for which he paid the ultimate price. The notorious Cray twins, Ronnie and Reggie, were imprisoned in Lewes jail in the 60s. The colourful, so-called celebrity gangsters managed to keep business going as usual while behind bars, hiring out protection teams to Hollywood stars. Frank Sinatra hired 17 of them from the Crays. No prison worth its salt can exist without at least one ghost, and Lewes is no different. Local gossip has it that one of the corridors is haunted by a man in Victorian-style prison garb. He is said to have dropped dead of a seizure when he saw his son enter the same block as a fellow prisoner. So keep your eyes peeled as you pass the prison on the way out of Lewes on the road to Brighton. You never know what you might see. Two men have appeared at Lewes Crown Court charged with sexually abusing 13 teenage girls. Osman Karuma, aged 30, and Max Nyasa are alleged to have fed the girls with alcohol and drugs before having sex with them, and the Coast Guard has urged visitors to the south of the region to use common sense after photos were taken of a young girl in a wheelchair who was pushed to within inches of the cliff face at Burling Gap. And that's Catch 'em for this week. See you next week for more news about crime around the district. Keith Hayes, South Downs TV. What's that, Ray? You want my phone number? Here, I'll write it down for you on this fiver. That way you won't forget it. Neither will I. It's illegal to write on a banknote. Here, Ray, give me my fiver back. Well, I'm terribly sorry. We are having all sorts of problems this morning, which are not for once of our making. Basically, what happens is the internet keeps on cutting out. So that's really the provider's fault. So I'm sorry about that. It is now 12 minutes past 10. We keep on being interrupted. Let's see if we have other things which. Well, I have no idea what this is, but let's. Why this is happening, I have not the slightest idea. Uh, it's very frustrating, and let's try this mode opera. Right, okay. Struggle. I'm really up against it now because I have no clue why this is happening. But we'll keep trying. We'll keep trying. And Mr. Betsy, we keep trying. Let's try this one.